Okay, what's going on, ladies and gents? JV Wins is here. Dogon SS is here. Back for another week on the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, we certainly appreciate you supporting logical content. As we continue our race towards 1,000 subscribers, we of course want to thank everybody who on a weekly basis catches wind of our videos and hits that subscribe button so they can follow along on the journey with us as we continue to do this, because it is a highlight. It's a treat for us each and every week. And in saying that, I like to preface this stream the way I preface every other stream by saying, if you happen to come across this video either live right now or post talk, if you catch it as a standalone video and you like the commentary in this video or you appreciate the work that we put into this video, man, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that like button, man, because we certainly appreciate making that logical content. And we want you to get a notification whenever we publish new content to the channel as we continue to up the ante. So with that being said, man, we'll go ahead and get right into it for this week's video. First up, we're going to talk about Gabrielle Union. Gabrielle Union, who, you know, it goes without saying, she looks fantastic for her age at the ripe old age of 50. She was on the podcast for the actor Dax Shepard. So Dax Shepard, he's one of these funny comedian guys. He's also been around for a while. He does the podcast Armchair Expert. And Gabrielle Union was a part of Armchair Expert. And they got into some relationship stuff. And so Gabrielle Union talked about how her first marriage was full of toxicity and how she felt entitled to cheat because she had more, did more, or made more money. And just generally speaking, she was just talking about how toxic the relationship was on both sides. But from her end, she kind of delved a little bit into her personal philosophy on why she felt entitled to do some of the things that she was doing throughout that marriage before it eventually dissolved. Anybody who follows Gabrielle Union knows that she's been married to Dwayne Wade since, I think, 2014. So I'll go ahead and play. I'm going to share my screen here so that we can play this clip. Now, this clip is audio only. It is audio only, which is probably for the best because, you know, we don't want to get hit with no copyright infringement from Armchair Expert. We're just, you know, little fish trying to swim around in this big podcast pond. We don't need to get hit with any sort of stuff like that.
The hell?
So, you know, yeah, this is an audio only clip. We won't play the whole thing, but we will play the part that is of interest to us as we talk about this particular piece. And then we will discuss our opinions on what Gabrielle had to say on the back end.
You were always married during all this stuff.
I was always married, but that first go round, you know, I definitely was not getting Wife of the Year awards.
Okay, good.
I had some focus issues.
Sure.
You know?
Listen. We had this weird moment. Chris and I were watching White Lotus. Do you watch White Lotus?
I'm still on the first season.
No spoilers.
The point is, we're watching it, and I have this moment, and I go, man, you know, I have so much regret over what I put some women through, particularly infidelity-wise. It's just shameful. It's terrible. So I'm saying this out loud. I'm saying, you know, it's so regrettable and shameful. And I'm sometimes glad I did it. Like, life's short, and it's one trip here. It's complicated for me. I'm glad I took some of the opportunities that came my way. I don't know.
Well, in our first marriage, neither one of us felt like the marriage should get in the way of our dating. And so,
Oh my God. That
part of
sentence.
it
you
was
and I
like
identical. I was
keeping up with his activities. And I was like, oh, that's what you're doing? Oh, you're going to feel this one. And
Okay.
I just felt entitled to it as well. I was paying all the bills. I was working my ass off. And I felt like that's what comes, the spoils of riches.
Yeah.
And like my dad before me, whoever has the most gets to do whatever the hell they want, is what I thought.
Yes.
And it was just dysfunctional from day one.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so there you have it. She said neither one of them felt as though the marriage should get in the way of their dating. And she also talked about how she was working her ass off and paying the bills. And so her father instilled in her, or maybe she just kind of gleaned this through osmosis from her father, that whoever is doing more or making the most or contributing the most is entitled to certain things. And I guess cheating is one of those things that you're entitled to when that is the case. So this struck me as modern woman philosophy. I'm willing to guess that it struck you in the same way. But Gabby has been on the scene. She even wrote a book talking about her sexual prowess. Like she wrote some book a long time ago. It's like her memoir or her own novel or something like that. I forget the name of her book, but she gets a lot into like her sexual appetite and her relationship history and just her life in general. So this is not new territory for her to speak on. And of course, her personal life is oftentimes in the limelight through her marriage with Dwayne Wade because of their alternative measures when it comes to how they choose to raise their family, which is their prerogative, is their business. But the point is, this is not uncharted waters for Gabrielle Union. So, what did you make of what she had to say about her toxic first marriage and the fact that she felt entitled to cheat because she made the most and paid the bills?
I think what she observed from her father of him making the money and doing his thing, and I think that was it's a big component to how I think a lot of women feel when it comes to dealing with a man that makes significant amount of money or more money than them, or they're stay at home. Basically, they're depending on the man. So if they're in a state of depending on a man, they feel as though that the men wouldn't run the situation well, in the sense that since he feels like he's paying all the bills, then he really feels like he owns her. So this is where we get these women trying to make money for themselves, have stash bank accounts. Even if she's dealing with the guy, she's still going to be in a position of, I got a secret bank account where I'm keeping money to myself because nobody's going to treat me like I'm literally a slave. So they've built this defense mechanism as a culture of women to empower themselves financially, which we're calling masculine. The ways they go about it is masculine. This is a masculine economy. So in order for them to be successful, they have to adopt masculine traits. And so for Gabrielle going to basically the league and being in Hollywood, so she's got access to all kinds of men that make all kinds of money. And if she's in a position where she's making so much money that a man can't tell her what to do, then she's going to cheat. And by leaving this guy, she's basically calling him a dusty. I cheated on him because he was lame and dusty. That's basically translation for that. And yeah, I can cheat on him because he ain't financially dominating me. So so she gets with Wade. Wade has NBA contracts. I don't know how much money she pulls in from Hollywood, but he's still a very high level guy. And for him to make the kind of money that he makes, he's not somebody to financially embarrass, I would say, for lack of better words. So she can't really, just laugh, ha ha ha, I make more money than you, and whatever, even though she runs that situation too. So initial thoughts here. How do you feel about this whole situation here? Do you agree with Miss Union here, or do you think she was a little too extreme in those days?
I just think that it's unfortunately right in line with the way relationships work now. It's funny. I have older women from previous eras and generations in my family. And me being one of the few men in my age group in my family who are still single, I'm often probed with questions as to why. And we oftentimes get into, because these women being older and coming from a previous generation, they can speak better than me in terms of how things are different now compared to the way they used to be. So a lot of the things that I hear a lot from whoever it is I might be talking to, older aunties or older cousins, things like that, is, this emphasis on income being the permission upon which to be able to do whatever you want because
Yeah.
you earn money or you bring in money and all of this kind
Right.
of stuff.
Mhm.
Even though providership and things like that have been an indication of who is at the head of a family or relationship, it isn't historically in terms of modern civilization. So post the way they used to do them back in the older eras of monarchies and kings and queens and arranged marriages and all of that kind of stuff. Marriage as we know it today in modern civilization over the last couple hundred years or so, this idea of income or money being the signifier for one being able to exercise certain liberties is relatively new. It's relatively modern in terms of today. And they mention how that wasn't always the case. And they talk about how men might have been bringing in more money because of the way that the patriarchy was set up. It was designed for men to be earning the most, being the breadwinner, being in the workforce, whereas it wasn't always the case for women up until recent history. There were still ways for women to supplement their contributions so that men did not feel that they were privileged enough to run around doing whatever they wanted. Now, granted, you still had men who did whatever they wanted. You still had men who cheated, who stepped out on their wives, but it was because they just felt that way about life in general. It was less about how much money they made. It was less about the fact that I pay all these bills, therefore I can cheat. And it was more so about it was baked into who they were as a human being. I'm just going to step out and cheat on my wife. So, these guys could have been broke or made less or made equal in turn, juxtaposed to whatever their wives made. They were still going to do whatever they did because it wasn't about the income. It was about, that's just how I'm built as a human being. I'm going to step out and do whatever I want. But this notion of income being something that entitles you to being able to do whatever you want, there were ways to offset that in previous generations based upon other areas of the relationship in which women could supplement themselves so that men felt less inclined to do these things based solely on the grounds of income. Now, gradually, as we can tell, a lot of that has deteriorated. And as you stated in your opening remarks, what we see a lot of is women dating in a masculine way. We see it a lot in the rhetoric and the music. And we see it a lot with these dating podcasts and these other forms of content that people consume on a regular basis, where women being able to exercise options and doing whatever they want isn't so much them exercising their individuality, and it's more so them leveling the playing field because they feel as though they can do whatever they feel as though they want to be able to do whatever men have been doing for the longest time, which is less about options and it's just more about disintegrating the patriarchy and doing things in a masculine way because masculinity is what wins. It's a different conversation if you want to talk about how much of a viable wife that makes you to men of balance, but I guess we can go there if we chose to. Nevertheless, this kind of thing is somewhat of a newer phenomenon. And what we know now is that relationships in the modern sense, particularly in the context when you're dealing with people like this, is almost entirely transactional. Is one big power play where it is me bringing this to the table entitles me to certain privileges. And so obviously if women want to strip away roles and masculine and feminine lanes that people respectively in a relationship are responsible for fulfilling, then of course it's a no-brainer that women are also going to say, if I'm bringing in money, I'm entitled to the same privileges as you. And as Gabrielle pointed out, it leads to nothing but dysfunctionality because no one, despite how much money they earn or lack thereof, is going to be okay with someone running roughshod on them in terms of stepping out on a relationship, whether they're a man or a woman. But when you're dealing with business transactions, which is what modern relationships have devolved into, there's no way for a man to supplement his woman making more than him in any other areas of the relationship. Because as we've pointed out on previous pods, as a man, it is more incumbent upon you than ever before to both physically, intellectually, and financially dominate your partner if you want to garner her respect and prevent her from feeling as though she should be entitled to certain things that you don't want her to feel entitled to. And if you can't do all three of those things, good luck keeping her from feeling entitled to do whatever she wants. So even if this guy was laying the pipe to Gabrielle the way she likes it and providing emotional support in the way that she likes it, because he was missing one arm of the triumvirate of the three things that you need to have in order to be able to wholly dominate, it
Yeah.
didn't matter. He was a loser in that dynamic. And she exercised the will that she was able to exercise in whatever way she sees fit. And he ended up coming out looking like the loser on that end. No matter however you want to slice it publicly, that's how he came out looking. And again, we just report the news on this channel. So I'm not surprised to hear her talk in this way. A lot of women feel this way. And it's something that's been sort of given to them through generations of psychosis, both from a societal perspective and in terms of their interfamily dynamics and some of the things that they've gleaned therein. So, uh, not surprised to hear her say that. Again, this guy, whoever, her previous husband, he just didn't dominate in all facets. And you can be a woman and only dominate in one or two areas and still be able to succeed in terms of your relationship. But as a man, you have to be able to dominate in every respect, all three. And if you can't do that, there's no form of supplementation that can make up for what she's going to feel like she can do to you because you're not fulfilling your end of that domination bargain. So, not surprised to hear her say that. A lot of women feel that way. They'll continue to feel that way. And, guys just got to dominate or else face the wrath of a woman who feels entitled to certain privileges.
Yeah, well said. And as far as the angle of how we got here with this, modern woman syndrome thing, is that they grew up watching certain relationship dynamics. And if the man is running the house and he is paying all the bills and the mom is a stay-at-home mom and the guy's cheating and he's doing whatever, all right, the woman doesn't want to know. So even if she's like digging through stuff, she still shouldn't find out. So stuff like that, she doesn't want to know. And if you're running the household like a kingdom, all right, and there's certain levels of power within that kingdom, the king and the queen, all right, of course you should dominate the house. This is your house, you're paying for it and all that other stuff. But when the attitude of I paid for that, so I control it, but then the woman starts looking around and, well, everything is yours. So there's this level of, hey, what about me? What do I get to call my own kind of thing? And so them growing up seeing those dynamics where the power structure from the male's perspective or, from the male side may not have been handled correctly. The guy may have been, running a tyrannical form of leadership in the household. And so them seeing those levels of dynamics, they're going, hey, I'm not going to be in that position. Why? Because she was broke. And I ain't trying to be broke. I ain't trying to be broke or in no position to financially get out of a situation because somebody feels like they own me because they make more money. And so there does have to be good forms of leadership, coming from the male side. And whenever you are running your organization, well, how are you running it? Are you tyrannical? Are you walking into the break room while everybody's chilling and stuff? And hey, I run this place. I pay y'all checks. I'm the reason y'all eat at night. 15-minute break over. And it's like, damn, bro, like, what's up? I make the rules here. Got a problem?
Right.
You could just go.
Yeah.
And then you can just go. What's the alternative? You're gonna find another job. How my bills are gonna get paid up until that. Like, what am I? I'll stay. And then the guy makes sure she doesn't leave. They've seen these things too. Leave her circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So with them seeing these things in previous generations, the newer ones are like, yeah, I'm not going to be in that boat like that woman was. So I want to be an entrepreneur, on top of other things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be an entrepreneur. Because consumerism is feeding into a lot of this crap too. People just want to consume. And then the boom of the 90s where there was, if you look at those 90s infomercials, the amount of waste, there's still waste going on now. But back then when consumerism was really on the rise, people wanted to just buy. And you need money to buy. So if these women want to have a air quote decent lifestyle, they're going to have a guy who's making all this money. Well, if you want me to stay home and be all of this stuff you want me to be, then I'm going to need you to pull in X amount of dollars in this consumerist life we're all living in. So there needs to be levels of humility on both sides. So guys got to humble themselves in the sense of, yeah, man, you can run your leadership, but how are you running your organization? Because everybody who's running an organization isn't running a Fortune 500 company. And there's organizations that run things and they go into the ground. That's why one of the main complaints that women keep talking about is leadership. And they're looking for somebody to lead and leadership. But if the public school system was doing a great job of making sure that men don't be men, so they don't know how to lead, that's one step. Then once you start getting into all these levels of mind control on television and video games and all this other stuff that's telling men not to be men. So then when they're of leadership age, they don't even know how to lead, which is extremely unattractive to a woman. So once they're actually in a position of leadership, then what's going to end up happening is he don't know how to lead. He never did it before. So now he's just shooting off the hip. And now he's being a dictator instead of a situation where you're still running the show, but you're not, running some, crisis.
Yeah. Right.
So there does need to be balance from the men's perspective. A lot of men right now is hollering that, hey, where the good women at or whatever. And the important thing is that guys need to know how to lead, and they need to be the leaders of their own lives. And what's attractive to women is the fact that it looks like you're leading your life. I want to be a part of that. Then that's when you can share, you can do all this stuff, because there's so many women, because they're at this point, he's a leader. He can divvy this up. He'll figure it out. And they just want a part of the lifestyle. So that's why we have so many average women acting like men, because they're in a pool of men who aren't being men, to be quite frank about it. So guys got to step it up. Women got to step it up too. But for the guys, they got to step it up, and they know what they need to be doing. And if they're doing those things, then rock on, bro. You must be balling in your own kind of way in your own personal life. You don't need 6 figures to be balling. But if there's something that you need to get up on, you got to get up on that, and have a more balanced way of doing things. So to tie all of this stuff into the Gabrielle Union stuff, she grew up in a situation where she saw a bad leader. And then so when she grew up, she decided to be masculine to defend herself. And then when she got with bruh here, she was displaying her masculine energy. And hell, even when she's with Wade, she done turned Wade out. She got Wade doing all kinds of weird stuff. So this woman here, from how she was raised, how she was cultivated, speaks to her relationship dynamics currently. So, but yeah, man, I think there needs to be humility on both sides. Yes, money is important. How are you going to eat and, shelter yourself? But people put too much faith in it and put too much power. And in turn, They have ego trips when they start making more than the next person. And now they think that they're better than the next person just because they out earn them. And that's a problem on both sides of the spectrum. So
Yeah, I hear you. I think the missing ingredient is just manhood. If I can sum it up in a nice little bow. See, I've always personally felt as though and I feel like we're zeroing in on money, but that's okay because Gabrielle Union specifically talked about
right,
how she felt like she could cheat because she made more money and paid the bills.
right,
So like I've always personally felt as though this income thing was overblown. Now, the reason why I say it's overblown is because women fixate on it so much, but they don't even realize that the reason why they fixate on it is because for them, because their particular taste in men, which somewhat is not their fault, it has a lot, like you said, it has a lot to do with what you've observed relationally growing up when you're, developing your sense of the world and trying to understand the way things work. Because you might have observed certain things as you were coming up and developing, you start to internalize this idea of income as like an indication of like a man's leadership qualities or manhood. And then when you get disappointed repeatedly because you realize you're not happy in this relationship because this guy isn't actually a man, you then internalize that and say, well, all of these guys aren't leaders, they're not real men, so let me just go after the money and get the lifestyle anyway because ain't none of y'all real men.
right,
Right. But then on the flip side, you have a lot of guys. So like you said, it's a balancing act. You have a lot of guys who don't actually know how to be men and lead, who don't understand what manhood actually is. And so what they end up doing to perpetuate this dynamic is they throw money at relationships as a symbol of their own man, as a symbol of their own manhood, and as a symbol of their own virility. Because they're not actually men and they're not actually leaders for real, they say, well, I can just throw my bankroll at it and that'll make her submit. When really these women don't respect men who have money, they just take advantage of the lifestyle. But if you look at all of these celebrity relationships, a lot of these, weird relationships with these pro athletes and stuff like that, where they end up breaking up left and right and the relationships don't work out and all of this kind of stuff. Like there was no respect there. It was
right,
just money. It was just money and income and lifestyle. But she didn't actually respect that guy because he wasn't actually a full-grown man who had certain skills that were tantamount to one being a leader as a man in a relationship.
right,
And I don't care how much money any guy makes. Um, if you lack actual leadership qualities, there's not going to be any respect there. And no relationship works if the woman does not respect you as a man. It just won't work. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do or how much money you make. So, like, Gabrielle Union has been looking at guys who throw money at relationships probably all her life. And she's internalized that kind of stuff. She's now walking around saying, all you're good for in terms of your relationship is how much you can contribute monetarily. So it's something that perpetuates upon itself. And like, if I can sum it up, it's just all about manhood, bro. And if there's one thing that a man can do to supplement things like your woman making less than you, it's actually being a real man who has certain leadership qualities that are just baked into the bread of who you are as an individual, as a human being. If you're coming to the table with certain skill sets in terms of leadership, financial planning, running the household from a physical standpoint in terms of getting things done, just running the house in general, you can survive with your woman making a few $1,000s more than you a year. Trust me, you can. Like I've seen it done. This is why I said that I feel like this income thing is largely overblown, and we use money as a way to reconcile the truth, which is a lack of leadership and a lack of manhood qualities on the part of men in general. So like if you're actually doing these things and you're supplementing whatever she's making more than you in any kind of capacity, it won't matter because at the end of the day, you'll still have her respect. But if you're unable to bring those things to the table, then she's going to feel entitled to do certain things based upon the fact that she makes what she makes and brings in what she brings in. And there's nothing that you're going to do to stop her from feeling that way because of what she's been sort of trained to believe in terms of the way relationships are supposed to work along the lines of money, pretty much since she was a child. So I agree that, Gabrielle probably internalized a lot of this stuff growing up. And so it's just it's buried under layers of psychosis. And this is the case for a lot of women who mistakenly conflate income with leadership qualities and manhood. And when they realize that's not the case, they then generalize all men beneath this umbrella and pretty much determine that all men are like this. And if
Right.
as a man you can't bring the money to the table, then you must inherently not be good enough for me to stay faithful.
Right.
So this is pretty much what it boils down to. I still think that the both of us respectively are on to something when we talk about the importance of men dominating in all three of those areas. But domination from a financial standpoint can mean you run the money, not necessarily that you bring in the most money. But if you lack actual tangible leadership skills, you'll probably not have the skills or the wherewithal to do those things. So it's a no-brainer that your woman is going to feel like she can step out on you because she makes more money.
Well, and also just the emphasis of Western people in general about money and power, and that even though it's fiat and it only has the value that we give to it, it's still people. These concepts, people are aware of either consciously or subconsciously, but in either event, they still treat it they hold it on this pedestal. And man, you'll be hard pressed to find a woman nowadays that's out earning the guy and she's content with this. Content in the sense that she still respects him.
Right. Yeah.
And you just be hard pressed, man. And so in a nutshell, if you are a guy, I still highly recommend being in a situation where you're out earning. It's how you run the situation once you're there, though. And once you're in that position where you're out earning whoever you're talking to, run your nation the way you think it should be run. And if you're just running some tyrannical thing, and yeah, because I'm the breadwinner here, I'm the one who bought that, so I control that. So like, nah, man, it's just one of those things, man. Once you have a woman or a family or something like that, whatever you buy, ask your dad when he used to buy juice or soda when you was young. You know what I'm saying? As soon as it comes in the refrigerator, it's gone. So whenever you buy something as a man that's the leader of the person, you already know that it's getting chopped in half, kind of thing, at least off rip. Fellas, she's gonna have a side bank account because she loves you, but she still don't trust you. You're gonna have to deal with these things. These are the ramifications and the trickle down from consumerism reaching its apex right now. So you're going to have all of these dynamics in play. The question is, who are you dealing with? So knowing your personnel. So if you're running an organization, you have to know your personnel, what makes them tick, what's their motivations. And if you know what makes them tick and you know that their motivations is not what fits your culture, then you got to deal away with that immediately. And you can't have that in your break room because they're going to be corrupting the other employees and things is going to get crazy. So they got to buy into your program, buy into your leadership formats, And here's a quick tip, guys. Some guys may already know this, but I had to learn this, over the years. Even when a woman asks you a question, she's expecting an answer. If you don't know, you don't tell her you don't know. For example, stuff like, now, if it's like, what's the distance from here to the moon? I don't know. Let me Google it. That's cool. I'm talking about what you want to eat for dinner tonight. Bro, if you don't know what you want to eat, because it don't matter, don't say it don't matter. Don't say I don't know. Just come up with something and just give her an answer. Women love direction because, well, you're the leader. And if you're being the guy that, is close enough to her for you to be sleeping with all the time, then she's looking to follow your lead. That's why they ask you these little these soft underhand questions. What do you want to eat now? Or I'm hungry. You tell her what to do. And so it's concepts like that where respect is lost in these little shit testy little situations that's going on. So yeah, man, overall, there is no rites of passage for males growing up. I mean, you got sports, and that's it, man. So men don't know what it is to be a man. And then with all of these new liberal agendas being pushed on college campuses, hell, when I was in elementary and middle school, we was getting some of these rhetoric and talking points that tells men that their natural and innate things that make them drive is toxic. So there's a whole bunch of things at play here that's playing out with the marriage rates, the single rates, the involuntarily celibate rates. Like all of these things are coming to a boil. And week over week, we talk about certain things, but here's another component that we can add to what's driving this phenomenon that we're all witnessing right now. So
Yeah. It's crazy. It's interesting. I would just, it's difficult because you can't really tell people, like, it's when something is in your mind, and when something is just sort of embedded in your brain, you can't just apply logic and people are going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds different. Let me live my life differently. So I'm not going to sit up here and be like, trying to tell women, you stop always going after the guys who make the most money, because that doesn't necessarily make them the best men, because they've sort of been trained to believe that that's a signifier of manhood and masculinity and maturity and leadership. But I will say that, you know, um, don't perpetuate your own insanity. Like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again but expecting a different result. If you're realizing that you find yourself in relationships with men and you're compelled to cheat because there's some intrinsic satisfaction that they are unable to fulfill within you, but this guy got a lot of paper, maybe reorient your thinking a little bit, because there's guys out there who can fulfill that need for you and make you feel as though you don't need to step out and cheat, that you're not entitled to do so. um, and it isn't necessarily contingent completely upon money, but on certain skills that they have, that they bring to the table, that a lot of other men don't possess. And those men who don't possess those things are the men that you have been choosing to give your time and attention to. So those will be my parting words. um, I don't know if Gabrielle Union, that's a lesson that she didn't learn, because she went and married Dwayne Wade. That's a subject for another video. I got love for D Wade as a basketball player, not so much in terms of some of the other decisions that he's made in his personal life. And I feel right, and I feel comfortable commenting on that because they put their personal lives on Front Street in public. So that's their own fault. But be that as it may, interesting stuff from Gabrielle Union. I'll be damned if my woman is going to feel entitled to cheat because she make a couple more ducats than me. That's not going to happen. But I guess I'm built different.